This video covers how to process a pay run using the advanced overtime calculations. If you plan to use advanced overtime but haven't set up overtime earnings yet, please see the video on advanced overtime setup. If you have simple overtime needs with a single overtime rate for hours over a threshold, consider viewing the topic on simple overtime. The advanced overtime can calculate based on hours entered directly into the pay run or entered into timesheets, and those timesheets can be manually entered or brought in from a time clock. If you do daily overtime, we do need timesheets for each day. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to skip timesheets and just show hours entered directly onto the pay run. So that's under Processes, Pay Employees, or if you have CenterPoint Accounting, Processes, Payroll, Pay Employees. Click New to create a new pay run, and then enter or validate the pay run information. For the pay period dates, it's important to know that they do not need to align with your overtime periods. You can pay every 2 weeks, but still have weekly overtime calculations. You'll just need to enter the hours into the correct week. And if you pay semi-monthly or monthly, your pay periods do not always cover the same days of the week, and that's okay too. If your pay period ends mid-overtime period, CenterPoint will keep track of those hours until the next paycheck when that overtime period is complete. There is a do not calculate overtime checkbox here. If you do not want overtime to calculate at all on this paycheck, that often gets used for bonuses where the overtime is already being included in the employee's regular paycheck. The next step is just to select the employees, go ahead, move them over. I'm just going to use Sam Apple for an example today. And then click Import Timesheets if you did use timesheets. And after that, go to tab 2, Enter Pay. Now you'll notice that there is a section here in the regular earnings for the overtime period where any overtime periods covered by my pay period are broken out so I can put in the hours into the correct week. The earnings here that do not have an overtime period are earnings where overtime doesn't apply, such as vacation or paid time off. I didn't have any timesheets, but if I did, they would have come in here under timesheets and the overtime would have calculated automatically. I'm going to enter in 40 hours from the first week for Sam Apple here, and note that because I'm paying time and a half for hours over 40, no overtime is calculated. But if he did work more hours on the next week, we can see 48 hours, it calculated 8 hours of overtime. If you put in hours on these leave type earnings for vacation, for example, it's not going to calculate any additional overtime. And you can have breakouts for different overtime pays. For example, this is time and a half after 40 hours, but if it's then double time after 60, you can up this to 62, for example. And now we can see that that's 20 hours at time and a half, and then 2 hours at double time. And then earnings such as this commission earning, which are included in overtime to calculate an average overtime rate, but don't have any hours, will increase the overtime or the average rate. So here it's $10 an hour. But if I put in some commissions, it's going to increase that average rate. Right, from here, you just continue to process the pay run like normal. There's just a couple of things I do want to show you. In the reports, this is a prepayment report, but it's the same for the regular reports too. You can run just about any of the reports that include hours. There's an optional column you can add for overtime hours because the hours will be included just in the regular hours, and then you can see that broke out into overtime. And the last thing I want to show is when you print the check, we do have a stub type standard with overtime and benefits that is specifically designed to show the advanced overtime. So I'm going to go ahead and print this here. Let's just see what that looks like. So if I open up this paycheck, you can see that the hours are all listed under the regular hourly pay, but we break it down here in this hour section for that regular hours and how many is overtime hours to get to that total.